Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. The New Orleans Pelicans continuing their 5-game road trip, and obviously mixed blessing to this point in time. But the good news is, once again, the Western Conference 8 spot is just there for the taking because nobody's really any good. Portland got a good win over Cleveland. Watch out for Minnesota from behind because they got 3 dynamite young players. But the Pelicans are positioned well if they can stay healthy to get that spot.
Exactly. And obviously a chance to make some hay, as we've talked about, against an Eastern Conference that outside of Cleveland is clearly weaker than the West. You've got way more good teams in the West. You mentioned Portland's win over Cleveland. Minnesota's win over Houston, another good win. So it's it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But you gotta get the opportunities that are there for you. And even though you're on the road against the East. You got a chance to still get some of the 3 remaining games on this road trip.
College basketball has been another very rough year in Louisiana. The one good story taking place is at the University of New Orleans, where the Privateers got off to a 4-0 start in conference play heading into their conference game on Thursday night and getting some well-deserved attention. Nice to see that.
It is. And look, as I wrote one Wednesday at SportsNOLA.com, get out there tonight. If there are so many reasons for people not to want to go to things. Well, look, these guys are winning right now. They're in first place in their league. They're playing the preseason favorites in their league, and in Sam Houston State coming to town. This is truly, a key game, and a very big game, and a game you want to get to. I would argue to say that this is probably the biggest home game UNO has had since the Monty Tao days, going back to the early 2000s.
A rare win for Tulane over South Florida in men's basketball. Kudos to them. And then there's the plight of LSU. And, Lenny, at this point, I think it's safe to say that the clock is ticking on Johnny Jones. And with all due respect, he had the number 1 pick overall in the NBA draft last year, and he had another NBA player in Quarterman, and he doesn't even make the NCAA tournament or any other, for that matter. And this year, to watch what's happening, disregard the record, it's misleading. Anybody good that they've played, they've not only lost, but they typically lost in big fashion.
Yeah, and that's not something that LSU teams have done a lot of, but they've had some blowout losses this year, the latest of those Wednesday night at Texas A&M. And if they could find a way to get it together, it's, they could actually, play on because of the level of the schedule that they do play. But you look at it and you wonder, can this team win, 3 or 4 more games the rest of the year? And, LSU should be better than that. It's that simple.
Well, you have to demand that your players at least attempt to defend. And that's never happened under Johnny Jones, with all due respect. And watching some of the highlights of the A&M game, and A&M's not as talented as they've been in recent years, it was just too easy.
It was. It really was. And, that's not the type of team you should be getting blown out against. That's an A&M team that's probably going to end up a middle-of-the-pack team in the SEC. This was not going to Rupp. This was not going to Florida or South Carolina, who have clearly established themselves as the 3 best teams in the SEC at this point. This was going to A&M. And, I mean, you look at the teams that they've played thus far in the SEC, they really haven't played anybody in which you'd put in the upper echelon, and they're 1-3 at this point.
Good news for New Orleans with a major event coming in wrestling and I know a lot of people will look at it and scoff and say, well, it's not sport, that's entertainment. And they're probably right, but it's entertainment that fills up a building over 70,000 people last time it was here.
And remember this, who is the arm behind bringing this here? It's the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation. Maybe we should suggest to our friends at the Sports Foundation, kind of like ESPN once upon a time when they actually had an acronym and weren't just 4 letters. Maybe they're the Greater New Orleans Sports and Entertainment Foundation, because it is truly that. No one's going to tell you this is a sport. It's great entertainment, but it certainly plays to the same audience that sports fans do, and it's great for the city, and it's a huge economic impact when this event comes to town. And it's not just a one-night show. It's basically a week-long event, not unlike what you see with a Super Bowl or any of these other big events that come to town.
More kudos to LSU baseball. Perfect Game has them ranked number 2 in the nation. So a lot of people think very highly of Paul Maneri's team going into the season.
And they should. And the game I'm interested in seeing early on, they're going back to Houston, which is a great tournament, by the way, the one that they play at Minute Maid Park. But on a Friday night of that tournament, they're going to face TCU, which a lot of people have as the number 1 team in the nation. And I know it's just one game in the course of a baseball season, but that should be a lot of fun. College baseball's still about a month away. You got a couple of weeks before practice starts, but it could be a good year locally.
Indeed. And finally, high school basketball, our coverage continuing at SportsNOLA.com, and we have one for you this Friday night.
Good one as well. De La Salle at Country Day. We had the game a year ago at De La Salle. It was a terrific game. We've got the rematch, if you will, this year with De La Salle heading into Old Metairie to take on Country Day at the Cajuns gym, and that should be an outstanding game. Friday night, 7:30 is the tip-off time right here on SportsNOLA.com.
Enjoy it indeed. Watch the John Forcade Show Thursday night on SportsNOLA. Yeah, SportsNOLA. On WHNO TV, Channel 20. Make sure you do so.
We catch the segments on SportsNOLA.com as well. If you miss it on TV, we give you that. John and Mike are never short of opinions.
There you go. Make sure you check that out. And, of course, check out all of our prep sports coverage from wrestling to soccer to basketball and everything under the sun at SportsNOLA.com. Have a good weekend.
We'll see you next week.
That's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. For Lenny, I'm Kenny. Have a great weekend, and God bless you.